Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of Football Never Sleeps, the weekly and live YouTube show dedicated to Notre Dame football, even when temperatures are consistently in the 90s. I'm Tyler James, back from a couple days in Indianapolis, and I'll be flying solo as your only host tonight while Eric's enjoying a little time off. That means I will need your help with questions throughout the show, but I also have plenty for us to discuss. Notre Dame's been even hotter on the recruiting trail than the weather in South Bend. The Irish have added 5 verbal commitments to their 2026 class since the beginning of last week, and even added their first commitment in the 2027 class on Tuesday, which came from a long snapper. I'll share my thoughts on this latest hot streak for the Irish and what could be coming next, as there should be some more good news ahead. The Rivals 5-star wrapped up on Tuesday, and it included 5 Notre Dame commits competing and a handful of Irish targets in attendance as well. I'll break down the performances and share video clips next on Oh man, that wasn't very good. I give myself a failing grade on hitting the Football Never Sleeps cue there. I went too fast in my practice, and so then I went too slow in the real thing here. But I don't know that that's what you guys are here for, or at least hopefully that's not what you're here for from me. I'm better at things that are not that introduction, but I hope you guys stick with me through that poorly done intro. Eric will do better when we get him back on the show, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of good things to discuss. But like I said, I have a lot to discuss. First, make sure you subscribe to us here on the Inside Indy Sports YouTube channel. That's not going anywhere. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment on the show. We appreciate the support, and we will be continuing to be bringing you YouTube content on this channel, and we are excited about what's coming next, which we can get into a little bit later. But first, I wanted to start with Notre Dame seemingly calling it shots on the recruiting trail lately. Since the last edition of Football Never Sleeps, Notre Dame has added verbal commitments from a trio of 4-star recruits: offensive lineman Grayson McHugh, defensive back Joey O'Brien, and cornerback Karia Adams, 3-star tight end Preston Frizzell, and unrated offensive tackle Charlie Thom in the 2026 class. Even long snapper Sean Kraft became Notre Dame's first commitment in the 2027 class. That happened on Tuesday. I think personally, McHugh and O'Brien and Adams are sort of the clear cut best of the bunch of the recent commitments. I like Notre Dame being aggressive and going out and adding Grayson McHugh as someone who's more of a pure offensive tackle. Notre Dame definitely needed that in this class. And Thom presents that as well in the future, though he's just started to transition from tight end to offensive tackle for a prep school year at Avon Old Farms out in Connecticut. Sort of an intriguing recruitment there, but one that once Notre Dame decided it wanted to get in it, it was pretty clear that Notre Dame was where he wanted to be. O'Brien is, to me, one of the most intriguing safety prospects in the country. That was only solidified by getting to see him at the Rivals 5-star. And we'll talk a little bit more about him later, but he's a dynamic playmaker with great length and quickness. And one nugget that I learned when speaking to him down in Indianapolis is that he was so impressed by Oregon during his official visit that he considered canceling his Notre Dame official visit, which was the next weekend. Obviously, that worked out the other way around, where Notre Dame was able to get him on campus and then eventually get his commitment. So that is a good thing for Notre Dame, but sort of speaks to how up and down the process can be, and how sort of emotional kids can be coming off visits. Brian asks, how tall is O'Brien? He's listed at 6'3". He might be 6'4". I think he's taller than me, and I believe I am 6'4", so he might even be 6'5". But he's tall. His length is legit. It's not inflated by any means. I think the people who do have questions about O'Brien is maybe is he too tall, but certainly did not come off that way when I got to see him in person. He is definitely tall, but that doesn't seem to impact his ability to play football at a high level. And not only did Notre Dame beat Oregon there, but beat Clemson and Penn State, who were trying very hard to get him. Adams was another guy that Notre Dame beat Penn State for, which has become a bit of a trend. He has great length at cornerback. Notre Dame's put together a really talented secondary now with 4 commitments, and looking to add a fifth still. I think one of the biggest needs left was filled with, or not necessarily filled, because I think Notre Dame would like to add one more tight end to the class. But Preston Friesel gave Notre Dame its first tight end commitment in the class. It was the lone position left in the class that had not received a commitment when he committed recently. He's more of a pass catcher right now than a true tight end. But Notre Dame needed answers at that position, like I mentioned. So we'll see how he develops. A kid from Toledo, Ohio, who actually grew up a Michigan fan, but Notre Dame pushed for him starting in May, and we'll try to get some success out of him. I've seen people like sort of try to compare him to Tyler Eifert because Eifert was more of a receiver than a tight end in high school. That would obviously that's a lofty comparison. I don't know that I want to put those kind of expectations on someone quite yet, but there's other comparisons that I feel maybe are a little bit more fair based on high school success. And when we talk about Joey O'Brien a little bit later, you'll see why. If it comes to your mind, you won't be the first one to think of it, that he maybe reminds you a little bit of Kyle Hamilton, the way he moves and the way he can impact a game with his size at the back end of the secondary. But I appreciate you guys getting questions. Let me take the questions that have been submitted so far before we get into what's next for Notre Dame recruiting. First one I have is from Bob Oxnard, and this one's not related to recruiting, but do you think Kedron Young is gaining weight to carve out a short yardage role for himself this year? Thanks, Tyler. I think that could be possible. I think that's a way that he could get into the mix. I think it's a tall task given the amount of talent ahead of him. I just think Kedron Young is that's just sort of natural. It doesn't look unnatural when you see Kedron Young in person. He does look like a big dude, and he's a rocked up running back for sure. But I don't know that it's an intentional effort to be like, this is what I need to do to be a short yardage back in Notre Dame's offense. Because I think that might not be the best if that was his intent right now. I'm not sure how good that would be for him long term. And I think you got to probably handle yourself in a more long-term situation as a running back because of the amount of guys that are ahead of him right now and the amount of opportunities that could be ahead of him, maybe not this season, but next season after that. So I think it's a fair question because he has continued to get bigger through his time at Notre Dame. I need to look up his actual weight right now. I don't have the number in front of me. Let's see what we got here. He's listed at 242 pounds, I believe, 5'11", 242. So, yeah, that's a big guy at the running back position. I'm just looking at guys that are near him on the roster. That's bigger than Preston Zinter at linebacker. So if you're a linebacker meeting Kedron Young in the hole, you better bring your lunchbox with you because he's going to be a tough guy to bring down. Jeff Stevens asks, do you think Joey O'Brien's skills suit him to safety or cornerback? Is it out of the question that he plays any wide receiver? I think he's better at safety defensively. I think that's more natural for him. That allows him to make an impact in the box in terms of with run support and shorter throws in the middle of the field. He's an absolute ball hawk, especially in 7-on-7. He's shown that over and over again. And I think that's the place where he can make the greatest impact. It would be at safety. I think he could handle himself at corner. I think his chance to be most elite would be at safety. So that's probably where he ends up. And in terms of using him as a receiver, I think that would be possible. I think he's talented enough to do that. Like if Joey O'Brien decided today, you know what, I don't want to play safety. I just want to be a wide receiver at the college level. I think he could become an elite receiver. I don't know that makes the most sense for his career. But I do think there's a chance, like if Notre Dame wants to get creative and use him in ways like that, they could. I think if you're Notre Dame, you hope you have replenished the talent at your wide receiver position where you don't need someone like Joey O'Brien to do that. But he was playing some wide receiver at the Rivals 5-star yesterday when his team needed it. Scored at least one touchdown. I was upset because he talked to me after. He's like, "Did you get that on camera?" And I was like, "No, it was when Sean Kraft was committing to Notre Dame." So I was at my computer and I turned around and Joey O'Brien's doing a backflip in the end zone for scoring a touchdown. So unfortunately, I didn't get that. I haven't seen anyone have that clip out there. I'm hoping our Rivals video crew has that somewhere in a highlight package that I'll put together down the line, but it wasn't on social media the last I checked. But Joey O'Brien's impressive. We'll see I'll show you guys some clips of him here in a little bit from what I got of him, but the clips I have are defensive clips and not offensive clips. All right, Justin Kane says, do we have any other defensive line prospects besides Golden? No, the answer right now is no. Excuse me, I'm going to take a drink real quick. I don't have any gaps in jabbering while I'm by myself, so I apologize for having to do that. But right now the focus is on Elijah Golden, and I think there's a decent chance that Notre Dame can get him. Notre Dame's in a good spot there. Gotta close it out. I think Alabama's pushing to try to get him as well, among Virginia Tech as well, with Elijah being originally from Virginia. So, but I do like Notre Dame's chances right now. But after that, they have not. I would not be terribly surprised if in the fall Notre Dame decides, hey, let's double back and see if we can add another defensive lineman, even if Notre Dame does get Elijah Golden. Whether that's an interior guy or an end, I think that's to be seen. There's a chance, and we'll talk about it here shortly, that Notre Dame will have most of its commitments wrapped up by mid-January. So Notre Dame will have plenty of opportunities to sort of reevaluate, hey, what are there still places that we can get better at in this 2026 class, and we have the scholarship availability to do so. And are there guys that are interested in us? So I wouldn't rule that out, but I don't have any names to give you right now. It will just be Elijah Golden as the guy demanding all the attention on the defensive line right now. Scott Vegan says, is this our best recruiting cycle for talent and need in many years? If we can get Finley, the stud defensive tackle, and another wide receiver, this may be as good as I can remember. Yeah, Jeff, did I say mid-January? Mid-July would be what I meant there. I apologize if I misspoke. Mid-July is when Notre Dame should be able to have most of its recruiting class wrapped up with the number of guys that they're still recruiting still. I think many of them will have made their commitment decisions public by then. Scott says, again, is this the best recruiting cycle for talent and need in many years? I would need to sit down and sort of crunch the numbers. I think if you look at Rivals recruiting scores, there's some ways that you sort of compare them to each other, but obviously that doesn't necessarily compare how you feel about how Notre Dame addressed its needs. But if you look at the class rankings and the final numbers, I'm not sure if Notre Dame's will be the highest. It certainly won't be higher than the 2012 class. I think that's right. Hold on, let me look this up real quick. Apologies, I don't have Eric talking while I can look some of these things up that I try to do during the show most of the times. Not 2012. It must have been 2013. Yeah, it was the year after the title game run. So in 2013, Notre Dame finished number 3 overall in the Rivals team rankings, had 24 commitments, had 4 5-stars. Now, the misleading part of that is one of those 5 stars is Eddie Vanderdoes, who never even made it to Notre Dame. He signed with the Irish, but he ended up going to UCLA before his freshman season started. So Notre Dame got a lot of credit for getting a 5-star that never even came to Notre Dame. So that class probably wouldn't have finished as high without him in it. So there'd probably be, I'd be interested to do the math. I have not sat down and done that before, but it'd probably be around top 5 or number 5 or number 6 would be my guess. Just looking at it, because Florida was 4th with about 100 points less than Notre Dame, and I think Vanderdoes was worth more than 100 points. So maybe Notre Dame would have been 4th. But anyways, it's a tangent that you're probably not that interested in. So I don't know that Notre Dame's going to be able to have more points than. So in that class, Notre Dame had 2,893 Rivals team rankings points. Now, the Rivals team rankings are going away. Well, it would still be called Rivals team rankings, but the point system it will be going away because of the merger with On3. And my understanding is they're using the system that On3 uses, which I'm not terribly familiar with yet. So I think it would be hard to compare that, but we'll see what we can do comparatively. But right now, Notre Dame has 2,478, so that's not that far off. But or wait, that did update because Notre Dame is third right now. I had to do a double take. I was like, wait a minute, did I not update it? So Notre Dame has 2,478, but what's important is that they only take the top 20. So Notre Dame's at 21 commitments now, and it's not going to gain a lot more points because it doesn't have that it doesn't have a lot of like low numbered guys in the class. Like it only has 2 3-stars. So one of those or both of those 3-stars could eventually not count if Notre Dame replaces or gets 2 more 4-stars or higher in the class, which I think will happen. And it depends. A lot of the Notre Dame guys that are still deciding our 4-star recruits, will they finish? Where will they finish? Obviously, that will play a role too. But this is a very good class, and it's particularly the way it's going right now, and that it's sort of getting all the guys that come to campus now. That it's a little bit different because like Notre Dame had a number of guys that was trying to get to campus that canceled because they decided to commit to different schools or are training to commit to different schools before they made the official visits, which were scheduled for this past weekend. So Notre Dame's visit list was shorter last weekend than it was supposed to be initially, but they're really killing it with all the guys that they've hosted. So let me talk about that now in terms of what's next for Notre Dame. There are 7 recruits who made official visits to Notre Dame earlier this month who have yet to announce their commitment decisions. The first we'll talk about is 4-star wide receiver Kadon Finley, who Rivals ranks as number 93 overall in the 2026 class. I believe he's, in my opinion, Notre Dame's most important remaining target. Finley made an official visit to Texas this past weekend, but there's still a good feeling that Notre Dame can land his commitment, which some expect to be announced on July 4th. And that should and could set up a potential 3-day stretch where Notre Dame gets news from Kadon Finley, Devin Fitzgerald, and Braden Robinson, because 4-star wide receiver Devin Fitzgerald is planning to announce his decision on July 5th. He canceled his North Carolina official visit following his trip to Notre Dame. The Irish should be able to beat out Clemson, Stanford, and UCLA, in my opinion, for the son of legendary receiver Larry Fitzgerald. I like how that recruitment has played out for Notre Dame. So he's July 5th, and then July 6th, which we just learned, is when 4-star wide receiver Braden Robinson is set to announce his commitment decision. He had originally planned to announce on July 20th, but he moved it up to July 6th. He's also considering Miami and Arizona. Notre Dame really wants to add the speedster from Texas, and they believe they really impressed him on his official visit. So there's a chance there could be some major wide receiver fireworks for Notre Dame from the 4th of July on, with Finley on the 4th, Fitzgerald on the 5th, and Robinson on the 6th. So that's something that we'll be monitoring going into not this weekend, but the weekend after that. 4-star defensive tackle Elijah Golden, I think, is probably the second most important target remaining for Notre Dame, because as we mentioned earlier when Justin asked, he's really the only defensive lineman that Notre Dame is prioritizing right now, and he's their last sort of remaining option at the defensive tackle position. He made an official visit this past weekend, and I believe that may have been enough to push Notre Dame ahead of Alabama. He doesn't have a public commitment date yet, so we'll wait to see when he wants to decide. When I spoke to him following his visit, he was thinking he'd like to have it in July or August. So I don't think we'll have to wait a long time for that. Obviously, most of these guys like to have decisions, if they're close to decisions, done before they get ready to play their senior seasons and don't have as many distractions with the recruiting process, although that doesn't necessarily stop schools from continuing to reach out to them, even if they've committed somewhere else. 2 others who don't have commitment dates are the 2 remaining tight end targets, Evan Jacobson, a 3-star recruit, and Ian Premer, a 4-star recruit. Notre Dame would take both, I'm told, if they both wanted in, but that seems unlikely. I think Notre Dame has a better chance of landing Jacobson out of Iowa rather than Premer out of Kansas. Jacobson's last OV went to Iowa State in the middle of last week, and Premer's last official visit went to Kansas State this past weekend. So we'll see what's going on with that for Notre Dame. That's one of the lingering questions that Notre Dame wants to get at least 2. It could get 3. I don't think that'll because even if, say, Jacobson commits to Notre Dame, it's hard for me to imagine Ian Premer wanting to be the 3rd tight end in the class, even if he would arguably be the most talented of that trio. That would be tough to see. And if it went the other way, if Premer made a commitment decision first, would Evan Jacobson really want to be the 3rd tight end in the class? I'm not sure. That seems to be asking a lot of those guys to love Notre Dame that much to commit to a 3 tight end class. So those are the 7. I got one more that I didn't talk about. 3-star safety Nick Reddish. He's set to announce on July 11th. He also canceled his North Carolina visit after his Notre Dame official visit. And that's the same that Devin Fitzgerald did. Notre Dame's battling Virginia Tech primarily, but Wisconsin and Indiana are in the mix as well. So of those 7 guys, I have future casts already placed in favor of Notre Dame for 5 of those targets. It's Finley, Jacobson, Fitzgerald, Robinson, and Reddish. Considering one for Golden as well, but I haven't pulled the trigger there yet. Premer seems the least likely to me. I know on the Insider Lounge last week, I sort of did a ranking of, I think it was at maybe like 11 guys at that point in terms of targets who I think are most likely to commit, 1 being the most likely, 11 being the least likely. I did include Ephraim White on that list, but I don't think he's going to be in the picture unless Notre Dame doesn't get some of its receivers that it wants to get here next month. Notre Dame's in a great position to, they would essentially land a commitment from almost all of the guys who made official visits. Now, obviously, many of the guys that made official visits were already committed, but the guys that came to Notre Dame's campus uncommitted, like Joey O'Brien, like Kari Adams, like Grayson McHugh, those guys, Notre Dame is on a roll with those guys, and that should be a good thing. Yeah, Jeff, I think I mentioned that Braden Robinson moved up his date. He's to July 6th. So 4th for Finley, 5th for Fitzgerald, and 6th for Robinson. Robinson was the 20th, and he intends to announce on the 6th now. I confirmed that with him a little bit before we got started on the show. Scott W says Mike Brown has got to be under a lot of pressure. He needs to hang out more with Mike Mickens. Well, if he ends up getting Finley, Fitzgerald, and Robinson in addition to Bubba Frazier, that would be a pretty good recruiting class for Mike Brown. Now, obviously, I think the bar's a little bit lower in terms of expectations for receivers recruiting at Notre Dame right now, but that would be a very, very good class, especially for Notre Dame standards. Like to get 4 guys, all those guys are 4-star prospects. That would be a very good group and an impressive cycle for Mike Brown after a little bit of a slow start to his time at Notre Dame as a recruiter. And like I mentioned earlier, I think there's a chance Notre Dame revisits trying to recruit another defensive lineman or maybe even a linebacker later on. Notre Dame only has 2 linebacker commitments after others have been looking elsewhere. And maybe they decide later on in the cycle. Those are probably the 2 positions that I would suggest would be the most likely that Notre Dame could revisit down the line. All right, I'm going to take another quick drink here, and then we'll start talking about Rivals 5-star and get into that. Actually, I may answer this question from Irish fan before I do that, but just give me a second here, folks. All right. This is from Irish fan. He said, "Hey, man, what's the scoop with your upcoming merger? I hope you're not giving up your independence." So folks may or may not have seen, we announced on Monday, both Eric and I will talk at length more about this. when we're both here. I don't want to speak for Eric, although I know I have a pretty good understanding of his thought process and stuff because we've gone through this process together. First, to get to Irish fans' question, like we are merging with Blue and Gold Illustrated. So the team at blueandgold.com, we will be joining that staff, and that's where our content will be available. This YouTube channel will still exist. I think, like I mentioned earlier, we're working on figuring out a different name for it. But we still plan to do Football Never Sleeps, our podcast, and different things that you're used to expecting from us, and maybe some more things too. And maybe integrate some of the Blue and Gold staff on some of our shows as well. And we're excited about that. This was obviously presented to us when On3 made the decision to acquire Rivals. And both things will still exist in terms of On3 and Rivals. On3 Media will be the owner of both. On3 will cover college athletics, NIL, those kinds of things. Rivals will be the brand because it is such a legacy brand that Rivals will be the brand for recruiting. If you want comments on that, Shannon Terry over on X/Twitter has shared plenty of thoughts on that. And so that happens July 1st. But for those of you who mostly take in our content through YouTube, nothing should change. You'll still get our stuff. The name might change. But we'll communicate that to you guys. But we'll still be here doing our content on YouTube, in addition to producing content for blueandgold.com. We'll be on the Lose Samoji message board. That'll be a very cool thing to do. We're looking forward to that. We've been having lots of meetings to get prepared for this, and we're excited about the transition. We didn't necessarily have him to, I mean, we run the company of Inside Any Sports, but we had a contract with Rivals. Now we've decided to join the Blue and Gold Illustrated staff, and we're excited about that opportunity, and to help continue to elevate the product that Blue and Gold offers. And I think we can do a lot to that. The guys over at Blue and Gold do great work already, and so I think we can be a pretty good place to get all your Notre Dame coverage. And we'll cover football and recruiting like we do here, men's basketball, women's basketball, and as much as we can get our hands on. So hopefully that answers some of the questions that you guys had about that. We'll get into much more of it later, but I know not all of you visit our website as regularly as you do checking out our stuff on YouTube. But so soon we will be over at Blue and Gold starting on July 1st. All right, so let me do some button pressing here to make sure I got us set up to do this correctly. So I have some clips here from the Rivals 5-star event down in Indianapolis. There were 5 Notre Dame commits in the competition on Tuesday in Indianapolis at the practice facility of the Colts. Safety Joey O'Brien, running back Javian Osborne, cornerback Chasten Smith, and offensive lineman Tyler Merrill and Gregory Patrick. And so I've queued up some of the clips I was able to get. I have some on Twitter that I can pull up for us too. I want to make sure that I'm not messing that up. So give me a second here and I will get that all set up. Hopefully this is cool. I did this last year from Jacksonville when the Rivals 5-star was down there, and I sort of did it on the fly. Hopefully this is a little bit better, but we'll see how it goes. I think there's some good content here that you've probably seen if you're on the Insider Lounge or on our message board, but we can sort of talk about it, and I'll take whatever questions you guys have about it as well. So, okay, I need this and this. I need to make myself smaller because you don't want to see me as much anymore. And, okay, this is our test here. We're going to add this Joey O'Brien clip. There we go. All right. I have turned the sound off, one, because there's music playing, so I don't want to get stricken for playing copyrighted music, and 2, there's maybe some language that folks might not find appropriate, so you won't hear what's going on in these clips, but we can obviously see what's going on, and that's the most important part. So first, who I thought was the most impressive from the group was Joey O'Brien. He delivered on his expectations. he's a long defender who closes those passing lanes in a hurry, and I think has some very good potential to be good at the college level. Here's a little bit of what I'm talking about in terms of what he can do breaking up passes. This was a 2-point conversion attempt in the 7-on-7 period. And he sort of just, as soon as he recognized where he thought the ball was going, accelerated and was able to make up the play to break up the pass. And obviously you can see the length that he has to be able to reach out and do something like that. So I have a few more tweets from folks that I can use here. So let me do that now. Give me a second. All right. So here is a clip from Sam Spiegelman. He's covering here number 7. I'm pretty sure this is CJ Sadler, who was named the wide receiver MVP of the camp by Rivals. So a very good athlete that Joey O'Brien with here. I need to turn the sound off on that as well. Just Joe O'Brien just gave him nowhere to go. Not much you could do on that route with the way O'Brien was playing against him, playing physically, and then obviously playing through the ball there. We got another one here from Steve Wiltfong. Farther in the distance, but he's running with, I don't know who it is here because the clip isn't as zoomed in, but he's running basically a wheel route. Someone's trying to get deep on him, and it's not happening. Joey O'Brien's all over it. And then there's one more here from Shane Pickering. And it's sort of similar to that play that I showed earlier, but he's out farther wide and breaks up a pass that was intended for Carson Snead, a tight end. So just like I said earlier, just the way he kind of explodes when he has a sense of what's coming. And then he's so long that it doesn't take him that many strides to get where he needs to be. And then obviously has the long arms that he can get his hands on the ball a lot of times. So a lot to like with what he did there. So let's see. Clontar says some think he'd be just as good or close to as good as wide receiver. Yeah, I think he could. Like if he decided to dedicate his career to being a receiver, I think he could be talented at that. I think he has the most freakishness possibilities, if that's a phrase that we can accept as making sense, at the safety position. I really like what he has been able to do there. And I think there's a lot that Notre Dame could get out of him. So Scott W said, dang, that kid is long and rangy. Kyle 2.0. Yeah. The Kyle Hamilton comparisons will never stop. I mean, unless he doesn't pan out at Notre Dame, where you're going to hear a lot of that. And it sort of reminds me of Michael Mayer kept getting called Baby Gronk, which turned out that Michael Mayer actually didn't love being called Baby Gronk. But I don't know if we'll call him Baby Kyle, but Joey O'Brien's going to be a special player in my opinion. And I think Rivals, even though he was invited to the Rivals 5-star, he wasn't ranked as highly on Rivals as he is elsewhere. I think he solidified that he deserves to be somewhere. Jeff says, should he be a 5-star? We were on the same wavelength there, Jeff. I could see that. When you go to an event like this and I'm there to cover the Notre Dame guys, like I'm not spending as much time watching everyone because there's multiple things going on at once. So I don't have the best sense for, okay, this is what everyone is capable of at safety, but it's hard for me to imagine there being a lot of safeties. I'd be surprised if there's a couple safeties who are better than Joey O'Brien in terms of what their potential could be. I think there's reason to believe he could be a 5-star. So we'll see if he can do that. I think the one knock that I had, Brian says here, like Kyle looks a bit out of place being so tall. Yeah, it's just like when I was watching the DBs getting warmed up, I was like, you don't have to look for Joey O'Brien. He stands out. Like he's obviously he's tall, long, and we're talking. Well, this is a 5-star camp. These are guys that are supposed to be among the best in the country. And it's like, oh, there's Joey O'Brien. He's longer and taller than all of them. So interesting to see what Mike Mickens can do with him, because obviously Notre Dame's got things rolling with defensive back recruiting. All right, next up, we're gonna talk a little bit about Javian Osborne. These camps aren't the best settings necessarily for running backs, because there's no running going on. So that's the unfortunate part of these camps for that. Like, I don't like if you're a running back, you're probably not having the best time at a camp like this. You're running a lot of routes. But I thought Javian Osborne looked good running routes, catching passes, and you don't just have to take my word for it. You can watch what he did here shortly. He received the gold ball, which is what the runner up at every position receives. He was the runner up at the running back position behind MVP Derek Cooper, who is a 5-star recruit. And so here is Javian Osborne. A little bit of a fake out, going outside and cutting back inside. Got loose here. This is probably a little bit of a longer route than you're expecting from a receiver in a situation like this. But yeah, I think he really got that linebacker off balance and took advantage of that. Here is another one of Javian Osborne. This time he's running out, and he shakes the linebacker so bad that he falls over. Unfortunately, I didn't get the end of the play. I was so upset that the fellow, I think, running back, was just right there in the way when he was at the point of the catch. So that was unfortunate, but he did catch it, I promise, even though you can't see it. And I didn't clip out the part where I drop the camera or point the camera down in frustration. But there he is. He's already got him stuck to the inside, plans to go outside, and makes a nice catch on the sideline, and continued to be difficult for linebackers to keep up with. All right. And then the last one we have here of Osborne is a bit of a deep route. Just zooms past the guy. And I know I didn't zoom here, so it's not the clearest, but he does catch this as well. A deep pass for a touchdown. And the quarterback who threw it is Teddy Jarrard, who is a 2027 quarterback who Notre Dame recently offered. One of the 2 quarterbacks Notre Dame offered. Jarrard actually won QB MVP at the camp. He was so impressive. So you like what you see here from Osborne. Just makes a couple quick cuts and gets right past the defender and gives the quarterback an option to hit him deep. So some impressive stuff there from Javian Osborne. And if you haven't picked up on this already from his social media influence on other guys in the class, he is a character. He's a great kid. I think people will really like him in terms of when you listen to him in the media and stuff like that during his college career. He's a fun guy to cover. All right, next up, we'll talk about Chasten Smith, the 4-star cornerback out of Tennessee. I thought he looked good. I tried to film him on 7-on-7 for a bit, but they just weren't throwing it his way. He was playing nickelback, but they weren't really throwing towards him. So here's one where I got when he was doing one-on-ones where the guy got a little bit open towards the end when he tries to do a double move, but it was a bit of a long route, and the quarterback still couldn't hit him. So I thought Chaz did a good job here, sticking with him and making it a hard deep throw for the quarterback against Chaz Smith playing here. There is another one that Sam Spiegelman put on social media, so let me get that one up for you as well. All right, sorry for the prolonged silence. My brain was working slow. So here's Chasten Smith, and again, this is C.J. Sadler that I believe he's covering. Like we saw a clip of Joey O'Brien earlier, and Sadler won wide receiver MVP for the camp. Let me turn the sound off. Runs with him the whole way. Not a lot of room for the quarterback to throw the ball to Sadler here. Smith does a nice job at the snap. Gets a little bit of a press on him. Runs with him. Smith's a guy who's very talented as well. I think I believe Rivals has him ranked higher. I'm fairly certain Rivals has him ranked higher than Adams, though I think some other sites have it the other way around. Smith's a very good player. This wasn't the first time I saw Smith. I saw him last year, would have been, I think, in Indianapolis at a Rivals regional camp. And he was good there, and that was before he ended up committing to Notre Dame. So someone that's used to playing in these camps does a good job in coverage, and I thought he was pretty solid throughout the camp on Tuesday. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about Tyler Merrill. Merrill is the 4-star offensive lineman from Pennsylvania. He's a big man. There's no doubt about his size. He he's a physically imposing offensive lineman, and an interior lineman for sure. With how big he is, like in terms of like width, he is a broad man, young man. And showed that off a little bit in the bench press competition. He had 23 reps here on the bench press at 225, and that is going into your high school senior year. That's a pretty good performance. He almost got the 24 here. I believe he was in like the top 3 of the bench press competition for all the guys that competed. There were any offensive lineman or defensive lineman who wanted to do it could do that. And many did, and there's a lot of big kids there at these 5-star competitions. Tyler Merrill was able to pop out 23 on the bench press, and I appreciate him just competing like that, because it's something you don't necessarily have to do, but to put up 23 on the bench, I thought was pretty impressive. All right. He wasn't necessarily as impressive in the one-on-one drills, in the pass pro drills. But I thought he held his own. Here we'll look at some reps of him going against Braden Parks. And Parks, if you may remember, is a 2027 defensive tackle target for Notre Dame out of the Chicago area. And Parks was very impressive at the camp and held his own with some older guys. So Parks is a major priority for Notre Dame, and it was sort of shown why, but here's him going up against Tyler Merrill, and there's 2 reps here. Merrill won the first, and then I would give the win to Parks on the second. Here's Merrill. He sort of keeps him to the outside, makes him go around. That's a good job in this kind of a drill to sort of force him that way. Then here in the second rep, Parks sort of corrects in not trying to go outside. Got Merrill, I think, to overset a little bit there on that second rep. Here, let's pull up the second rep again. I think Merrill was so conscious of making sure to not let him get past him on the outside that he overset a little bit. And right there, when Parks is cutting inside, you can see Merrill starting to lean a bit and isn't able to get his hands on him. And at this point, that's a bad position to be in for an offensive lineman. But gets right. Parks get past him, but I thought that was a pretty good couple of reps between some 2 talented guys. And these are drills that aren't necessarily made for offensive linemen to have an advantage. I think the defensive line has an advantage here where they're not wearing pads. There's not a extra target to hit and hold on to. But Merrill held his own there. I believe there's 4 reps here against, I think this is Cassie Curry. I'm not 100% on this because when they changed to the team uniforms, they didn't have the same numbers. So I'm not positive who this was. This one got a little bit physical. This wasn't a great one. That one was decent there by Tyler. Curry did sort of get to pull him down You want to keep your head back and be able to prevent him from doing that. And Curry gets around him there. And then I think Curry beats him here as well. And I don't think Merrill liked the way he was carrying himself, because you can see that here towards the end. Gives him a big shove. That was a little bit unnecessary, but that's sort of the edge that Tyler Merrill plays with. And like I said, these aren't the best drills for these guys. It's hard when you don't have those pads to punch onto, and the idea of the drill, to make it more even, is that the defensive linemen aren't supposed to bull rush, which doesn't they still end up bull rushing a lot. And so I think this first rush is kind of a bull rush. He's just pushing right through his chest. And like, that's not the point of the drill. The drill is for you to try to make a move around him. So I think sometimes it puts these offensive linemen in a bad spot, and then they're like, they don't want to get put on their butt, because then they're going to get on a clip that goes viral, and then these guys are faster. And I know, talking to Gregory Patrick, he was like, these aren't the kind of guys that I see on Friday nights very often. And so we'll get to some clips of Greg as well here. I got to add some more into the system, so give me just a second to do that. All right, there's one of them. And while these clips that I'm loading in here are Patrick going against Kari Wilder. You might remember that name because that was someone that Notre Dame was trying to recruit. He ended up committing to Ohio State before getting back to Notre Dame for a official visit. So that was unfortunate. He was very good at the camp. So, but let's go to this first one with Greg Patrick and Braden Parks. You can see how shifty Parks can be. These are the things you're trying to get out of this kind of drill. Like, it's not just like the defensive lineman trying to bowl through a guy. Like, he makes a move and challenges the offensive lineman to stay in front of him and get a good push on him. All right, here are some of the clips with Kari Wilder. Like I mentioned, or I don't know if I mentioned, Wilder ended up being named the defensive line MVP of the Rivals camp, of the Rivals 5-star. So this isn't a slouch that Patrick's going up against here. And just some things that I think Patrick can sort of warm up, like that one there. That's a bull rush. Like, and you can kind of see, like, the offensive linemen sort of tend to push back when that stuff happens. It's like, hey, this isn't what we're here for. And I think even on the sound of the clip, there's a guy saying, that's a bull rush. That's a bull rush. So it can be tough for those guys. And Patrick admittedly has some work to do in pass protection. That's not necessarily a major focus for him on his high school team. And so he'll need to improve on that. I mentioned before, this is a big jump in competition for him. And I thought he handled it well. He took it well. I didn't even mention this. One of these reps, he got hit in the nose and ended up getting a bloody nose. And so he went through the rest of the camp with some cotton in his nose. But he didn't give up and kept competing. So I thought that was admirable of him to continue to fight and step up there. A few more guys I want to talk about that aren't Notre Dame commits. So Notre Dame targets to impress. Mentioned Teddy Jarrard earlier. I thought he looked really good. He won the QB MVP in part because of the work he did in the accuracy competition. You can see here they're aiming for this net. You can't really see him. And he makes the first one, misses the second one. and then follows up the third one with a make. Not many guys were hit it in there twice. The more impressive clip to me was, which I didn't capture, but moment he hit on the other end zone or other side of the end zone, they had a net with 3 holes in it, and he hit it in a hole twice, and most guys didn't even do it once. So for him to be able to do that twice was impressive. And then the third part of the process was trying to hit the crossbar of the goalpost, and he was unable to do that, but he still won the accuracy challenge. Named QB MVP, his team made it to the championship round of the 7-on-7 tournament. Both of those teams had all the teams had 3 quarterbacks each, so it wasn't like Jarrard was the sole reason that they made it to the championship game. And who he actually played up against was quarterback Peyton Houston, who is the other 2027 quarterback that Notre Dame offered last week. And here is a clip of Houston, like I mentioned, throwing at the crossbar as that part of the drill. So Houston hits it on the first one there. Houston's definitely shorter. The comparisons that folks have made to him are Kyler Murray. That's something that Lincoln Riley has been pitching him as. Lincoln Riley, who coached Kyler Murray in college, now at USC, one of the top teams in competition for Peyton Houston, Oklahoma, Texas, are schools that I think he's highly interested in. Notre Dame getting added to the mix there. I think he's interested in Notre Dame. I think right now, Jarrard Notre Dame has a better chance at getting Jarrard potentially. I'm curious, like if he released a top 10, and a number of those schools are Midwest schools. I'm curious if there's some more SEC schools that will try to come after him. Georgia, where he's from, is recruiting him, and Georgia. He has a Georgia tie, and that his uncle played at Georgia. His Georgia was a quarterback there. I think it's Corey Phillips. I may have totally messed up the name, but his uncle played at Georgia, so there is a connection there that might be hard to overcome, and being from Georgia. But we'll see. Notre Dame likes him a lot. Gino Guiduglia spent some time with him. I wrote a story up on InsideNDSports.com about Teddy Jarrard from speaking with him, and so we'll see if Notre Dame is able to get him. A number of those clips we've already seen were Braden Parks going against the Notre Dame line commits. Here's him going up against Cal offensive line commit Tommy Toffee. And so I thought it's probably most fair to the Notre Dame commits to show that they weren't the only ones that were getting beat from time to time. This is what happens a lot. The defensive line was definitely the dominant group here. Even that was a pretty good rep from Toffee, but still, I think you could give the win to Parks. But Toffee did a decent job of staying in front of him through that move. So, again, not a drill that's made for the offensive line to dominate. I think the guy who has impressed me back-to-back years now at the Rivals 5-star is Kevin Brown, a Penn State offensive line commit. He is very good at this, good strength, and has a skill for this. Now we'll see how that translates. I think he's a very talented offensive lineman. But for instance, Felix Ojo, who's the number 3 offensive tackle in the country according to Rivals, he struggled. It's not an easy thing to do the way that the drill is set up without pads. It's not necessarily a winning combination for offensive linemen. So I think that's all I got for you guys. Let me see if there's some questions I missed. Kalantar said, can we get that defensive lineman? I'm not sure which one that was. I don't think it was Braden Parks, but I think that's one of the things that's always the most impressive at these 5-star camps is the defensive line talent that exists out there is pretty special. And Kari Wilder impressed, and it's like, yeah, that's why Notre Dame wanted him. Unfortunately, Ohio State seems to get who it wants more often on the defensive line and wide receiver. Those are the 2 positions that I think are really hard to recruit against Ohio State at right now. that's why you'll see so much talent at those positions, and why they're able to make runs to the national championship like they did last year. Clontarf says, do you think that fewer kids being into going out and partying nowadays helps ND recruiting? I don't necessarily know that. That would be interesting. I'm not sure that. I do know. I think I hear from kids, and it's tough because the kids I interview most are the guys that are seriously considering Notre Dame. Like, there's plenty of kids that would have no interest in Notre Dame, but Notre Dame's won't have offered them, so I won't necessarily talk to them. But a lot of kids, I mean, they're not really talking about that. I think that's certainly they want to be able to enjoy themselves, and I think one thing that Joey O'Brien spoke to was that when he was on his official visit, he found himself really sort of connecting with the other commits that were there. And I think that is something that Notre Dame has done a good job of amplifying. Like, these are the kinds of people you're going to be around at Notre Dame. And a lot of people will find that attractive, because as we see with college sports becoming more and more professional with NIL and revenue sharing, it's always been an audition for the next level, right? In some ways, but now I think it's become even more like you're here for a purpose, and that is to make money and to set yourself up to make more money. Now at Notre Dame, they're telling you that yes, you can do that as a football player, but you're also going to be able to do that after your career as a football player as well. And that's what Notre Dame is really selling kids on. That's a big part of the message that Marcus Freeman gives to recruits. Usually anytime you talk to a recruit about how it was talking to Marcus Freeman, that's the first thing that they mention is that he's really big on life after football. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Obviously, the way things are going for Notre Dame right now in the recruiting cycle, there's some proof of concept right now. The way Notre Dame has things rolling with its way it offers kids, with the way it gets them on campus, the way it handles its visits, the way it explains what Notre Dame can do for them, the NIL and revenue sharing possibilities, those are all in play. And then add the fact that Notre Dame made a run to the national championship game, and it's a very attractive place for kids. And so that is what is working for Notre Dame right now. So what isn't working as well as my brain. I am a bit tired. Hopefully this was enjoyable for most of you. If you made it this far, I imagine that it was enjoyable. Otherwise, maybe you just put me on mute and forgot to close the browser out. But that'll be it for me tonight on Football Never Sleeps. We'll be back with another Football Never Sleeps next week. Hopefully, I think we should be able to get Eric and I together for Football Never Sleeps. I think that shouldn't be too difficult to plan. We'll be dealing with less time off between the two of us in the month of July. So we want to make a big impact with our new home at Blue and Gold. And so we'll be working plenty but obviously, like I mentioned, we'll still be here on this YouTube channel. So make sure you stay subscribed to us. If you already are, if you haven't subscribed to us here, subscribe now, hit that button, hit the like button. We appreciate you all for supporting us. Appreciate you guys helping me out through a solo show tonight. I was going to try to get some of the Rivals analysts on to join us tonight, but they were traveling back. I drove back after the camp yesterday, so I got a head start on those guys, and most of them had flights today, so it was too difficult to try to get them on. So I handled it myself. Hopefully you learned something. If you didn't, send me a message and I'll make up for it. But I appreciate you all. Thanks, Scott, Irish Fan, Clontarf, TD, Jeff, Brian. Sorry if I'm missing some names. Those are the most recent. Scott, really appreciate you guys hanging out with me tonight. And everyone have a great week. And you'll see us before the 4th of July. So look out for a Football Never Sleeps next week.